Europe a region in change, a country that took a long time to unify. People who only started regarding themselves as German as the centuries progressed. Who are they? Where did they come from? Questions about the history of the German people. There is no mention of the Germans in the 10th century. The tribes of the Bavarians, Saxons, Swabians and Franks are connected mainly by their language. A common external enemy strengthens their cohesion. One who wants to seize the moment and rule as king over the German territories and as emperor over Christian Europe, Otto I. Seven contingents from German tribes, 12,000 fighters from Bavaria. The Frankish territory, Swabia, Lorraine and Bohemia have followed their king's call for help. Otto is pinning his hopes on a decisive battle. The Magyars have never fought against King Otto, but they are confident of victory. Their reputation precedes them as it has before. Year after year, more than 50 times already, the dreaded horsemen from the steppes have swept into the empire on plundering raids.
They burned down castles, towns and churches and caused a bloodbath among the populace. Nobody was spared.
The words of a chronicler. That's why the Magyars were called enemies of mankind and of Christianity.
Let them come. Have courage. God will protect us.
Everything is at stake for King Otto, his crown and his vision of becoming an emperor as powerful as Charlemagne. The German tribes are united as they fight a common enemy. It's a life and death situation. Germany in the 10th century, inhospitable landscapes and ancient forests, fragmented, lacking fixed borders, home to 4 million people. At this point in time, its future is still uncertain. "19 years before the Battle of Lechfeld, Otto is still just the Duke of Saxony. He's on his way to Aachen with his 6-year-old son, Liudolf, who's due to succeed him one day. Almost all of his subjects are peasants, most of them serfs, living on the breadline. No one talks yet of a king of the Germans. The Kingdom of Germany is a land of dukes and tribes.
Open up, we've almost made it.
And they elect a common king. Otto's father, King Henry, has died. A successor must be chosen from among his sons and crowned here in Aachen. That's why Otto has convened all the dukes and the highest-ranking counts from all of the tribes. The history of the Germans can be said to begin here, with the arrival of Otto I at Charlemagne's imperial palace. Not only the nobility have shown up, chroniclers report that many commoners have come too. Archbishop Hildebert of Mainz greets Otto. Otto wants to be crowned Henry's successor in the palace chapel. The mortal remains of Charlemagne are buried here. He is venerated by the Germans and the French as the father of the nation. In the year 843, his grandchildren divide up the Frankish Empire into the kingdoms of West Francia, Middle Francia, and East Francia. They are home to 4 old Germanic tribes: Saxons, Franks, Swabians, and Bavarians. These lands would one day become the Deutschland, the land of the Germans. There is only one image of Otto's father, King Henry, an almost unrecognizable one on a seal. He breaks with Charlemagne's tradition. In order to secure authority, he doesn't divide up the realm among his sons. Just one of them is to be king, Otto. It's the first step towards a kingdom of the Germans. The monk Widukind reports in his chronicle what takes place on the day of the coronation in Aachen. It's a time when hardly anyone can read, let alone write, not even the nobility. As a result, grand gestures and significant rituals are needed. They made him king according to their custom. Then they promised him advice and assistance, the chronicler Widukind reports.
Your enemies are my enemies. Your friends are my friends. I wish to be loyal and at your side at all times, candid and obedient.
The dukes pledge their fealty to their king. The monarch must always know it's the tribal chiefs and the lords who choose the ruler. From the day of Otto's coronation on, this electoral principle will hold for almost 9 centuries. In Otto's case, the vote for the king is still accompanied by the consent of the people.
If you accept this choice, raise your right hand to heaven.
Widukind the monk reports that the people accepted the choice. Otto I is crowned king here, in the octagon of Aachen Cathedral, where the throne of Charlemagne still stands. A further 30 German rulers will follow in Otto's footsteps. The anointment by Archbishop Hildebert makes Otto the representative of God on earth, in line with the custom of the time.
May your head never be without the oil of mercy.
The bishop places the diadem on his head and proclaims him king and the successor of Charlemagne.
May you be crowned now and in the future with eternal reward.
The German kingdom was to be based on the divine will, the appointment by the lords and the legacy of history. He was now the king of all the German-speaking tribes. But would that be enough for him?
What's he planning?
That's the throne of an emperor, not a king.
When Otto also sat on Charlemagne's throne, it was seen as outrageous hubris, as if he wanted to demonstrate a claim to be emperor of all of Western Christendom.
Otto the Great was the first medieval ruler who wanted to assert rule by one man. That led to great resistance in his family, among his brothers who wanted to be involved in the royal rule. He responded to this with great violence. In other cases, he tried to respect claims. Overall, we must conclude that Otto the Great ruled firmly, trusting in God and exhibiting great tenacity.
In the Middle Ages, a king ruled from his saddle, because this realm didn't have a capital, a true seat of government. As a result, Otto was an itinerant king, touring the German lands with his almost 2,000-strong entourage for a good 180 days a year. When the king came, the towns, villages and monasteries were responsible for feeding everyone. The peasants in particular were hard hit. "God bless the king, but may he never return" was a common saying. Otto's first trip after his coronation in Aachen took him to the collegiate church in Quedlinburg. After years of hard work, restorers have revealed murals in the crypt that had been almost totally covered up. Among the many biblical scenes in the vault, there is also one very worldly image: King Otto with his crown and scepter. More than 1,000 years after it was made, the restorers returned a face to this fresco from the early period of German history. The elaborately restored collegiate church in Quedlinburg is now a World Heritage Site. Otto felt drawn to the crypt. It was his spiritual centre. He was known to be pious and regularly went on pilgrimages to the grave of his father, Henry, to whom he owed his kingdom.
Fader unser, der ist in dem hohen Himmel regier. Gebiet sie din Name. Kumma den Rigi.
That's what the Lord's Prayer sounds like in Old Saxon, Otto's language.
So an dem hohen Himmel regier.
As king, Otto didn't just have to fear his brothers who envied their father's favoritism. Again and again, bands of Hungarian riders roamed through the kingdom, pillaging and murdering. They called themselves Magyars. Otto now had a duty to protect his realm.
Amen.
And he was a devout Christian.
Protect us, Lord, from the Magyars' arrows.
Otto's father had built fortifications as a defense against the Hungarian riders, the Saxon palace in Werla, for example. In times of danger, the people could withdraw to forts behind ramparts, ditches and palisades. The king gave the peasants land and weapons. He also had grain stored so that his subjects could withstand longer sieges. The ramparts of that Saxon fort are still visible today, but back then they were not enough to prevent the Magyars from invading the kingdom. Because Otto moved from place to place, some of his subjects will have seen him and spoken to him.
Wanna bist du? Woher bist du?
Ansgar, van der Werla Burgikomo. Vader Iuva Heinrich, frian mi verlegt, dat Viverie land wieder Ungara.
Wata bibrenges?
Meroth han Gewanugi. Barno fi fodian mot.
Willy Willan Degan min?
Ibo kuning thikropit gang in Gottes Namen.
Ja.
How do we know what language the people spoke back then? Were the tribes in Otto's kingdom able to understand each other? The monastic library of St. Gallen in Switzerland contains many treasures from the early Middle Ages. Manuscripts provide insight into how the Germans communicated back then. The oldest book in the German language was written by monks in around AD 800. It's a dictionary for travellers, the Codex Abrogans. The word sanftmütig sounds similar to the modern German word sanftmütig, or gentle, while demodai sounds similar to demütig, or humble.
They spoke one language and they understood each other, even though they had strong dialects, as we'd say today, Bavarian, Franconian, Saxon, Alemannic. Sometimes communication was difficult, but what we call Old High German today is somewhat artificial. It's not one language that people actually spoke. Otto the Great caused a stir in Bavaria with his Saxon dialect. There's concrete testimony to that.
The Magdeburg rider is believed to be a likeness of Otto. The ambitious king's enemies included not only some of his brothers, but some dukes too. He could only secure his power, he knew, if he expanded his own ancestral lands. The most powerful German-speaking tribe, the Saxons, lived here on the Elbe around the year 1000. Otto I transformed the insignificant fishing village and market of Magadoburg into the royal city of Magdeburg. He had it surrounded by a wall, had churches built, a royal palace and a cathedral. Magdeburg remained one of Germany's most magnificent cities until its destruction in the 30 Years' War. After its Gothic reconstruction, the cathedral was one of the largest in Germany. The enthroned couple were chiseled into sandstone in around 1240, one of the most beautiful sculptures of the German Middle Ages. It's believed to depict King Otto and his first wife, Edgita. When Otto's beloved wife died, he married again. He chose Adelaide of Burgundy, the widow of the Italian king. Otto has a young son with her, Henry. His son from his first marriage, Liudolf, was long since grown up. He was already there at the coronation in Aachen. Up until now, he was regarded as the rightful successor to his father's throne.
Well, well, little Italian.
Stop it at once, Liudolf. Otto, tell him to stop. Show respect for the future king.
Did you say king?
Yes.
I'm the legitimate heir. Are you going to break all oaths for her? My father is silent, so I must answer.
Nobody could know how far Liudolf would go to assert his claim to the throne and what allies he would seek out. In the year 953, the Magyars attacked Otto's kingdom once again.
They set fire to castles and towns and caused such a bloodbath that there was threat of total depopulation.
The words of a chronicler. The enemies of God and mankind, as the Magyars were called at the time, managed to get all the way to the Rhine. Only Swabia, Liudolf's duchy, remained unscathed. Otto's son had decided not to fight the Magyars and to negotiate with them instead. Like other noblemen, he tried to quench the Magyars' greed for loot with gold and silver. But Liudolf wanted more. He met with Håkon Butsku, the Magyars' military leader.
Tell him I know of even greater spoils for you.
Liudolf didn't just want to buy himself out with the Magyars. They were to undermine his father's power and help him assert his claim to the throne.
Are you really King Otto's son?
Yes, his firstborn. But he wants to take the crown from me. My companion will lead you to the Rhine. You'll find more treasure there than one man can carry. Help yourself to my father's riches.
Liudolf's pact with the Magyars became known. He was not just risking his father's rule, but also opening up the land to the Magyars. What then happened in Rostal in Middle Franconia may be exactly how the Lay of Hildebrand portrays the father-son conflict.
The warriors examined their gear, prepared their armor, and buckled their swords. Two men of the same blood, father and son.
What have you done to me?
What have you done to me?
How much more disloyalty will you show me? Aren't you my flesh and blood?
You're taking everything. The crown, my honor, my pride.
Submit yourself to your father.
Never.
Lass ihn gehen.
Liudolf is able to flee from Rostal. My own son is my worst enemy, Otto laments. Liudolf finds a place of refuge in Regensburg on the river Danube. Otto besieges the episcopal city for 6 weeks. A famine ensues. The gates are opened. That same night, Regensburg almost burns down to the ground. But Liudolf manages to flee again. Will he continue to fight against his father? Will he seek help from the Magyars again? Widukind the chronicler reports the following incident. The king has gone hunting in a place called Suveldun, when suddenly a ragged warrior enters the camp. It's Liudolf, Otto's son. He has isolated himself with his treason. The dukes close ranks on the side of the king.
Stand, my son.
Liudolf was gripped by the deepest remorse. He swore to be obedient henceforth and to fulfill his father's every wish.
The words of the chronicler. As he is king by the grace of God, Otto feels bound to show mercy to his lost son. But Liudolf has forfeited any right to succeed Otto to the throne. Now Otto confronts the external enemy. They must drive out the Magyars with united forces. The king calls the warriors from all the tribes across the realm to come to Lechfeld, near Augsburg. The town is under siege by the Magyars and refuses to surrender. The cross of Ulrich in the church of St. Afra still commemorates the siege more than 1,000 years later. The people of Augsburg were hoping that Otto would liberate them with his confederation of tribes. Defense against the heathens was organized by Bishop Ulrich. He rode against the Magyars, knowing he might die, it is said. Legend has it that Otto marched on the plain of Lechfeld with all the warriors from the kingdom under his banner. The contingents came from Bavaria, Swabia, Bohemia, Franconia, and Lorraine. Most of the warriors were provided by powerful bishops. Under the banner of St. Michael, Otto managed to assemble an army that was truly enormous by the standards of the time, 12,000 men. It was to be a decisive battle.
The Magyars have destroyed our towns, set our churches on fire and killed many people. Should we retreat from the enemies of God and mankind in our own country? Men, we must show firm courage in the face of these heathens and their audacity.
The Saxon monk Widukind was the only one to report Otto's speech on the Lechfeld plain. His account was clearly intended to portray a heroic image of the king for posterity.
Now let us speak with our swords instead of our tongues. Father in heaven, give us life and victory.
Later generations would call this moment on the Lechfeld the birth of the Germans. The lance King Otto carried at the Battle of Lechfeld is part of the imperial regalia that are now kept in Vienna. Comparative investigations show it to date back to the time of Charlemagne, when this type of lance was common. But it has gone down in history as the Holy Lance.
In the time of Otto the Great, the Holy Lance was seen as a symbol of authority. Its owner was seen as the true bearer of kingship. The Holy Lance held this special power because it was seen as a relic with which a special part of Christ's passion had survived.
Legend has it that a Roman soldier stabbed the crucified Christ in the side with this lance. As a result, Otto and his warriors believed it to be holy.
This classification as a relic gave it an aura of a weapon that would bring victory, that would bolster Otto the Great and his troops in battle. If you had it, you were invincible.
Otto has chosen a wide-open plain.
Let them come.
He has his armoured riders form long lines, there to keep closed ranks.
Let them come. Have courage. God protects us.
The Holy Lance was to sanctify this battle. Otto's warriors believed the Magyars to be heathens. Their archers are formidable. They can kill from afar. The agile horsemen avoid close-up combat. They don't aim at specific targets. Instead, they fire devastating, scattered volleys. But this time Otto's army is better equipped. The many arrows bounce off their shields and the chainmail also provides protection. His ranks stand firm, much to the Magyars' surprise. That's what Otto has been banking on.
Men, onwards.
Now the king's riders take the offensive.
The braver men among the enemies resisted in the beginning. But when they saw how their fellow warriors were fleeing, they were surrounded by ours and were killed one after the other.
That's how the chronicler described the battle. The Magyars were not equipped for one-on-one combat. They only had light weapons and nothing with which to combat the lances and long swords of their opponents. The victory at Lechfeld gives Otto the standing he wants. As a chosen defender of God and glorious monarch, he now sees himself summoned to higher honours. He shows no mercy. No Magyar returns home. Those who are captured are decapitated, and their leader, Bulsku, is not the only man to be hanged. It's a brutal revenge, but the Battle of Lechfeld is a turning point.
If Otto the Great had been defeated, it probably would have meant that they would have had to start paying tribute to the Magyars. Maybe Otto would have fallen. All this would have meant that the kingdom would have been organized as individual tribes again. But victory at Lechfeld gave Otto the Great an uncontested position. He's recognized across Western Europe. You can definitely say that this was an important part of creating an identity in East Francia, which then later led to the German Empire.
King Otto was now called the Great Defender of the Fatherland. The joint victory at Lechfeld brought the German tribes closer together. The realm was taking shape, stretching from the Alps to the North Sea and the Baltic, and to the Elbe and the Saale in the east. But Otto had even greater ambitions. He wanted to follow in the tradition of the Roman emperors, like Charlemagne. To become emperor, he had to go to Italy. With an army of more than 1,000 warriors, Otto crossed the Alps in 961, when the Pope called for his help. Pope John XII is being pressured by the King of Italy, who contested the pontiff's claim to Rome. Otto was victorious and established his own rule in Italy. He went to Rome on the roads of the former Caesars. Otto the Great was 50 years old by now, a ripe old age. He entered the capital of the ancient Roman Empire as king. He wanted to return home as emperor. The Romans weren't impressed. "Now you, eternal Rome, have been taken by the Saxon king," the saying went. On the spot where Michelangelo's Basilica of St. Peter's now stands, the Pope once pronounced Charlemagne the Emperor of the Christian West. The same was to happen this time. It is said that Otto was crowned emperor on this round stone made of porphyry, emperor of a realm that would one day be known as the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. A chronicler reports that the Romans and Italy's princes didn't like the oath that Otto swore when the Pope made him emperor.
In the name of Christ, I swear that I will forever be the protector and defender of this holy Roman Church and all its territories.
Receive the symbol of glory.
This is how the allegiance between the German king and the Roman pontiff was forged.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Otto had achieved his goal of being the successor of Charlemagne in Europe. Signum Gloriae, the symbol of glory, the imperial crown, the most significant item in the imperial regalia. It's now in the treasury of the Hofburg Palace in Vienna. It's said that Otto the Great was crowned emperor with it. For centuries, this crown would be the symbol of the empire. King David and King Solomon are Otto's role models. Everything he does is done in the name of the Lord. Per me reges regnant. Through me, kings reign.
This crown and the imperial honor gave the emperor primacy over all the other kings in Europe. More honor, but not greater power. All the Holy Roman emperors wore this crown until 1806.
From now on, empire was part of German history, sometimes as a unifying force between the German nobility wishing for autonomy, sometimes as a trigger for war and division. But the notion of empire united the Germans across borders and religion. After the end of the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation in the early 19th century, the mythical notion of empire was revived in 1871 in the Second Empire of the Kaisers. Hitler's Third Reich tried to appropriate the regalia for itself, but in the end, Germany faced the mockery of the victorious Allies. The ruler from the Saxon nobility was now King of the Germans, King of Italy, and Holy Roman Emperor. He was called the darling of the world and the head of the whole globe. His challenges grew with his empire. Otto felt drawn to Italy. The Saxon and his warriors liked the south. Otto and his entourage spent 10 years in Italy, where they had to assert themselves against powerful opponents, against Italian princes, Byzantines, and Arabs. The long absence from the land of his birth was seen as the king's sin. It was said that his kingdom had been orphaned. That's the price he paid for a European empire that was also contested by the Byzantine Empire in the southeast. Since Otto cannot defeat Byzantium, he seeks to create peace through marriage. His son was to marry a Byzantine princess, but the plan didn't go altogether smoothly.
You were promised the Emperor's daughter. Instead, they want to foist a distant relative on us.
She is not born in the purple? That is fraud.
Do you like her?
She isn't worthy of me.
Send the bastard back.
The emperor wanted to find a conciliatory solution and made a decision for his son.
What is your name?
Theophanu.
Theophanu.
Otto accepted the bride for the sake of peace. One of the most beautiful marriage certificates of the Middle Ages attests to the union between two worlds that now recognized each other. Otto II and Theophano would rule together. But what was their legacy?
We should emphasize that the period of Otto the Great's reign contained several milestones on the way towards a German history. The Battle of Lechfeld and the Empire, and with that, Otto the Great did enough for Germany's history.
After many years in Italy, Otto longed for the land of his fathers again. Widukind, his chronicler, wrote, "He returned to Germania with great wealth and victorious troops."
Theophano, what are you reading?
It says here your land horrifies people with its marshes and forests, and you drink an intoxicating brew of barley and wheat.
About whom does it say that?
About your ancestors, the Germanic peoples. Why do Romans call you Teutons?
Because they fear us like the Teutons who once invaded Italy, and now their emperor is a Saxon.
They also dismissively call you Teutsche.
Oh, those stuck-up Romans, they only like Latin. They despise the languages of the Germanic peoples.
They went to Rome with Otto the Great as Saxons, Swabes, Franks and Bavarians. They returned home with the imperial crown and the name the Italians gave them. They would soon become accustomed to the name and eventually use it themselves. Deutsche, Germans.